The Trinity has to be one of the most misunderstood doctrines of the Christian faith that I see. I think we often get caught up in this idea that it's just a quote-unquote mystery and that we aren't really supposed to know how it works. Growing up, I remember an analogy that a teacher of mine would use was that 3-in-1 soap that some people have. The analogy was obviously supposed to show how something could be three yet one. Today, however, I want to offer a philosophical way to understand this doctrine of the Trinity better. I recently read a book from Elizabeth Klein titled God, What Every Catholic Should Know. In chapter 7 of the book, Klein offers an intuitional way to think about the Trinity that is derived from the characteristics that we know about God. Today, I want to try my best to convey this information to all of you. Although the Trinity can never be fully understood, I hope I can make this doctrine seem less daunting and more reasonable. When we imagine God and his attributes, many qualities come to mind. We might think of all of those omnis, his omnipresence, omniscience, omnibenevolence, and his omnipotence. God, as we understand him, just is. The essence of existence is just inherent in God's nature. So when we imagine his qualities, his infiniteness is revealed. Infinite in power, knowledge, being, and goodness. And as God is also described in the Bible, we know that he is truly infinite in love. Now, glancing at these attributes, two of them are especially interesting because they cause God to interact with himself. His omniscience, or infinite knowledge, and his omnibenevolence, or his infinite love. Take a moment and try to think about yourself. You may think about some of your qualities, maybe how you look, what you like or dislike, what you're good or bad at. The list could go on. But your imagination of yourself is always going to be lacking because you are not infinite in knowledge. God, on the other hand, is infinite in knowledge. So now, for a moment, consider God thinking about himself. God's thought about himself is entirely perfect and lacks nothing. But one's thought about themselves is not identical to that person. And as we touched on earlier, the essence of existence is inherent in God's nature, so his imagining of himself necessarily exists. God's thinking of himself necessarily generates another person, namely the Son. When I say generate, I don't mean generate in the sense that a dog generates a dog. In that example, the generated dog becomes a separate being, and as we understand, God is one being with three distinct persons, or one what, but three whos. So generating in this sense can be more understood as a person saying words. If I were to generate words, as I am now, they become distinct from me, but nevertheless still remain in me. The Son works in the same way. He is generated from God the Father, but nevertheless still remains in him. The Son is the perfect representation of the Father, and this sentiment is echoed in the Bible in Colossians and Hebrews. So now that we have this generated second person of God, we need to consider God loving himself. His loving of himself would be in his full knowledge of himself and would result in the complete and perfect outpouring of himself to himself. Okay, that was a lot of me saying himself, so let me try to rephrase that in a more understandable way. God generates the Son through his self-knowledge, and then proceeds to love himself. God, because his love is perfect and infinite, fully gives himself to the Son, who is also God. The Son perfectly receives this love and returns it in an infinite manner. This action of love spirates another person, the Holy Spirit. When I say spirate, it means to give breath or spirit. So the Holy Spirit is not generated, as that pertains to the intellect of God or his omniscience. The Holy Spirit, however, is the cause of the eternal will of the Father, which is love. The act of love that is shared by the Father and the Son gives breath to the third person in our Trinity. Reflecting on this, we can see that God is not 3-in-1 because of some impossible math equation, but because his nature necessitates it. God's inner relationship with himself reveals to us the fact that he is three persons in one being. This type of relationship is not how we would usually imagine it. It's not like how a father is related to a mother or a mother to a son. This relationship is more like an eternal dance, a sort of ebb and flow, a beautiful and perfect exchange that results in the great mystery that we are ever in awe of.